Well, let's get more analysis now from Maria Haberfeld, who is a professor of police science, at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. At a local level, for example, the governor of Oregon has called this deployment of federal agents, and I quote, a blatant abuse of power. And the mayor of Portland, Ted Wheeler, has called it an attack on U.S. democracy. So these, at a state level, these leaders do not want federal officers on their turf, but they're being sent anyway. Who's in the right?
Well, it's somewhere in between, because the president has the right to send federal troops to protect federal buildings, like the court buildings, for example. He also has the right to send the federal troops when there is a suspicion of domestic terrorism. And President Trump labeled Antifa, which is part of this demonstration, as a domestic terrorist group. So from the legal standpoint, there was no challenge to this deployment before. And as long as there's no deployment, as long as there's no challenge, the deployment is legal. On the state level, though, and also on the city level, there is this understanding and also legal framework that when there is a civil unrest that amounts to criminal violations, trespassing, violence, any type of violence, they do have the right to contain through local law enforcement. So, as I said, it's in the middle, but in my mind, it's certainly legal on the part of the president.
Well, the principle might be, but if they're operating outside their remit, I mean, carrying out arbitrary arrests in unmarked vehicles, not uniform, I mean, is that legal?
It's legal, again, as I said, as long as they are responding to threats against federal property. So as long as they're responding to threats against federal property, their operational protocols and procedures are very different from local law enforcement.
Okay, but I mean, if the idea is to work in some sort of a partnership with local authorities and the idea is to battle crime, doesn't it send the wrong message if you're sort of really working against them? If you've got these local authorities saying, please do not send federal agents, and they send them anyway, that doesn't sound like a partnership.
It doesn't sound like a partnership, but it's not clear, at least based on what is reported, whether it's truly opposed by local law enforcement. I actually have seen some letters and calls from various local law enforcement agencies, including in Chicago, asking for federal help. So it's not as clear-cut as it's reported that the local law enforcement is not welcoming this type of intervention.
But there are those who are saying, again, this is a blame deflection tactic by the Trump administration. I mean, there is soaring crime in areas of the United States right now, precisely because, according to experts, there's a correlation between the coronavirus pandemic, unemployment, economic hardship, and crime. So isn't this basically a deflection of blame for the inadequate handling of the pandemic?
I don't know if it's deflection of blame, because I do live in New York City, and I witness on a daily basis a tremendous increase in violent crime, not just in certain areas of the city, but throughout the city. So the response to this, at least in my mind, has to be swift and certain, because there is no way of controlling this violent crime in any other way. So far, the mayors of the cities are basically preventing the municipal law enforcement from engaging in active response. And as long as the mayors are preventing the local law enforcement, somebody needs to take care of this. I mean, I talk to people on the streets, I talk to my colleagues. We are very concerned with what's happening in the large cities. So we are not in Portland, we are in Manhattan, but we are very, very concerned with lack of response.
Yeah, but we're also less than 100 days away from a general election, a presidential election. And, there are those who say, critics of the president again, who say, President Trump doesn't stand a chance of being reelected as things stand right now. And he's trying to invigorate his base by playing this law and order card. How do you respond to that?
I think that, again, whoever lives in the big cities who are affected by tremendous increase in crime understands that it's not political but real. We have shootings, increasing violent crime shootings, deaths of little kids who are killed by gang members. It's not a ploy. It's not something that we do not witness. We do witness tremendous increase in crime. So again, as I said,
and what do you attribute that increase to then, if it's not the COVID-19 crisis?
It's a combination of COVID-19 crisis, but primarily it is the disempowerment of local law enforcement, especially in New York City, dismantling of anti-crime units that had 600 officers whose primary role was to take guns off the streets from the gang members. So if there is a tremendous anti-police sentiment which basically invalidates their authority to intervene and prevent crime, you have a direct correlation in spike of violent crime. This is something that we think, again, on a daily basis here. And it's not just what the numbers are telling you. You know, I live in a neighborhood that is relatively safe, yet I witness individuals violating laws on a daily basis, speeding through the intersections, screaming, yelling, threatening people. These are real things. They're not necessarily reported on the news on a daily basis, but we are seeing a tremendous deterioration of the quality of life, and people are afraid. People are truly afraid.
Okay, we're going to have to leave there. We're out of time. Thank you so much, Professor of Police Science, Maria Haberfeld. Thank you.